Hello guys, John here. Right, I'm going to use my little lunch break while I'm editing videos and wedding photos to talk about something briefly. Something that I don't know whether other people are actually realising. Right, so this is about, and I've written it all down, I'm going to read it off the screen. This is all about the illegal boatmen that are coming into Britain and what's the agenda, what are they really coming here for? And I'll read out what I've put. While our government has got no intentions of stopping the deluge of illegal boatmen from coming to the UK, these men are all young, fit army men. We already know this, and we already know that many of them have accidentally let slip that they're linked to the armed forces, whether it be within their own country or the United Nations or even the British Army. We've also seen raw videos online of hotels that have been snuck into and military-grade weapons being found to be stored at some of these hotels. Why is that? What I want to explain in this short video is what I believe is actually going on. We've witnessed countless major crimes being caused and committed by a lot of these illegal men. Daytime town centre sword fights, gang fights, muggings, burglaries, doorstep intimidations and trying to push into people's houses, phone snatching, sneaking around the outside of people's properties caught on doorbell and CCTV cameras, rapes and murders of women and young girls and men, kidnappings and attempted kidnappings, illegal men lurking in or near parks and schools to watch and film and photograph the children, all of whom become sheepish and defensive when challenged by parents or vigilantes. We know that these illegal men are from more than a dozen different countries and are of various races, but they are all practitioners of Islam in one form or another. And on that note, I might point out that religions are not races and races are not religions. And the reason that the radical wokey left are trying to conflate the two is because we don't have blasphemy laws and we're free to criticise religious ideologies as much as we want. So they want us to think that they're races so that we can't talk about it as though we're being racist. Where did I get to? Right, so the illegal men are from more than a dozen different countries of various races. They're all practitioners of Islam in one form or another. That's what they've got in common. This is the only thing they have in common. They've travelled through more than 16 peaceful countries to get to Calais. France is not at war. There are now also videos of some illegals' paperworks being found dumped on the beaches in France that show that they've been given official French citizenship or official asylum. But they've thrown those papers away and jumped on the boats and they've still carried on coming into Britain. The general consensus is that they are economic migrants rather than asylum seekers or refugees. And they seem to be forming some kind of militia in the UK as their numbers increase by the day. There are talks that the men might rise up and revolt against the British public in the next couple of years unless things change and we get them stopped and sent back. Others have figured out that our corrupt government is planning to give them all citizenship and the political vote, which I think is insane. This would be identical to what the American Democrats tried to do by importing lots of illegals across the Mexican border and then planning to give them the vote so that they would all vote for the Democrat Party and keep them in power, which was the Clintons, Biden and Kamala Harris's lot. Because they knew that when Trump got back into power, he'd stop it all, which he did. He put armed forces down across the Mexican border and took away the incentives as well. Take away the financial and hotel accommodation incentives and they'll stop coming here. But what a lot of people aren't realising or even thinking about is this. What if these men are actually being used? Well, how so? Well, we know that Starmer has mentioned digital ID as a way of stopping illegal immigration as though it will be a requirement to have one to be able to get a job in the UK. We all know that that's a load of claptrap, and that most of us have figured out that digital ID is a step towards a totalitarian and draconian Chinese-style social credit society, which would mean we would all be blackmailed into obedience at every step in life, as in no jab, no access to any commercial spaces, be them shops, hospitals, hotels, trains, planes, petrol stations, dentists, anywhere. And a whole lot more things would roll out with digital ID. So where do the Muslims come in? Well, let's compare them to the current British citizens. Around 6% of the current population is Muslim, and the rest is made up of Christians, atheists, and some of the smaller religions. Us British Christians and atheists, we're not obedient, we're not God-fearing, and we don't comply with government and establishment claptrap. We are opposed to getting digital ID, and we will never accept it. We will never accept a social credit system or 15-minute cities, which is part of the C40 Cities initiative, which Sad Khan, the Mayor of London, is the chairman for in Britain. We will never accept open borders, except the woke-tarded radical lefties who think that the whole of planet Earth is some utopia. However, Muslims do fear their God. They do obey ideological and societal rules, traditions and rituals. So it seems that if or when Britain becomes a majority Muslim country, the government would have a much easier time rolling out digital ID and nudging it towards a Chinese social credit system by constantly modifying the app. Therefore, it is my belief that the Muslim men and existing British Muslims are being used to make it easier for the government to make an open-air prison out of everything and control and contain everyone. Now, with the digital ID, do you remember the COVID passport? No jab, no access to XYZ. You can go onto YouTube and find 2021 and 2020 movies, videos and clips where there was a lot of British small companies that got government funding out of our tax money, and they were creating apps that were health passports, COVID passports. And there was one video where a guy walks up to the dentist's outside door, rings the doorbell, and then takes a few feet step back so that there's social distancing 2 meters apart. The secretary comes out and she holds her phone up, he holds his phone up about 2 meters apart, and they see this QR code on each screen, and it goes beep, and then she checks to make sure that he's been jabbed, and then it comes up access granted, and in they go. Well, it doesn't take a genius to realise that digital ID is going to very quickly incorporate everything about you, and you're going to end up having to carry it around either as a QR code on a piece of laminated card if you haven't got a smartphone, or you'll have your smartphone with you, and you're going to end up being blocked from going into any property that's commercial. I said this in my other video, that they cannot force us to have a digital ID because it goes against all of our inalienable God-given rights that are far more superior to any statutes or legislation that comes out of Britain, comes out of Parliament. But what they can do and what they will do is they will force commercial properties and businesses to comply. So that means that eventually what I expect would be every single shop, petrol station, dentist, garage, hotel, gig venue, sporting ground, public park, everywhere that's got an element of commercialness about it, or commerciality, or whatever the word is, laugh about it, you're going to have a QR code scanner. So you'll walk up to the shop door, say, the local shop, and you'll have to go beep, and then wait for the door to unlock because it'll be on a solenoid lock. If any of you have worked in office buildings or warehouses, you'll have had a lanyard with an RFID card round your neck, and you would have had to beep for the solenoid to let you through the door. Well, that's what's going to come. Everywhere will be non-human controlled digital electronic locks. There won't be a human to argue with. But on the same front, if you go to your local paper shop, for example, and you want to walk in, if you don't comply by beeping your digital ID and then being granted access, if you just walk in, the government will enforce that the shopkeeper has to ban you and throw you out and not serve you. Because if they don't, then they get heavily punished, prosecuted, fined, or even probably imprisoned or closed down, depending on whether it's we might end up with a renegade shopkeeper, like we had renegade pub landlords and renegade tattoo shops and whatnot during COVID. They refused to close down, and then what happened? The Gestapo came smashing in, the police smashing in, arresting people and closing businesses down. So that's what I think is going to happen. And the fact that they've already spoke about all the different things that they're looking to add to digital ID, it's not just going to be a work permit, like we've already got a national insurance number. It's going to have all your health records on there, which is the first thing. So say, for example, me, I'm overweight. So it would demand that I input my height, weight, age, and they've got all my other medical records down from the GP, all databased. Then I go into Asda, for example, and I go and do a weekly shop. And then when I get to the till, anything that I've purchased that's junk food, it'll deny me being allowed to buy them, because they'll end up, they'll either get rid of cash, or they'll have monitors that won't allow you to walk out the shop or complete your transaction, even if you've got your bank card or cash. The till won't allow you to complete your transaction if you've still got junk food in there. Beep. Sorry, John, you're too fat, mate. You can't have any Mars bars, chocolate, crisps, cakes, nothing like that for the next couple of months until you've lost the weight. If you lie about your weight, they'll know about it somehow. That's just one example, basically. If you're a naughty little citizen in China, you've seen videos all over YouTube about exposing what goes on in real China. Because when you go over there as a citizen, when you go over there as a tourist, you get sort of guided around the bits they want you to see, and you're not really allowed to go off the beaten track, but people have. And then they've had agents watching them closely, to make sure that they don't go filming the real poverty-stricken areas of China, or the places where they've got all the locking gates with all the rotating turnstiles like you have at football grounds to get in and out, basically banning people from going places. And there's accounts where people in China have gone onto social media and they've slated the police or something, and they've been had a knock on the door within a few hours in the middle of the night, dragged down to the police station, put into this restraint chair thing, which looks like a piece of scaffolding, and then been forced to beg, fawn and scrape and apologise and, I won't do it again. But here's another thing. If they do put a social credit system in, and you have a social credit score, if your score starts at 100, and then you start playing up like slating the police on YouTube or on Facebook, or being a dissenter against the government, dropping a cigarette or dropping litter, eventually it goes down and down and down, and it'll hit thresholds. Say if it gets to the threshold that puts you into a low scoring group, what's to say the government won't ban anybody that's got a higher score from socialising with you? Like we saw in the Black Mirror episode called Nosedive, with the redheaded there's a redheaded actress that was playing the part of a girl who was trying to get to her old school friend's wedding, and as she was travelling across America, she was encountering all sorts of problems, like she couldn't get the plane ticket right or the train's ticket right or whatever. And every time she had an interaction with anyone and everyone, a shopkeeper, a taxi driver, people just walking down the street, everybody's got into the habit of giving everybody a social score. And by the time she got to this wedding, her social score was so low, or in fact she hadn't even got there, the social score was reduced so far that her friends couldn't allow her to go. And she was basically banned from going to the wedding at all, but she managed to make her way there. And that's basically going to cleanse people from having their friends, because their friends won't want to risk hanging out with you, because their scores will be brought down, because they'll be punished. It's social cleansing, you know. Anyway, so I'm ranted on. So the main thing I wanted to say is the Muslim population of Britain and the illegal men, I believe, are being used. And they're being used to allow it to be easier to implement digital ID and a social credit system. And what I think should happen is all of the native Muslims that have lived here for a long time and all the illegal boatmen, they should all stand with the British public, because you're shooting yourselves in the foot. You're going to end up in a situation that you didn't want. You lot, all these illegal men that are coming over, they think they're on a conquest to have a war with us at some point when their numbers are up and to take over. That's what the general feeling is out there. But they're actually, you know, they're shitting on their own doorstep effectively. So that's all I wanted to say. It's gone on a bit longer than I thought, but I'm going to get back to what I've got to do now, because I've got a big wedding video to edit, and then I've got about 2,000 photos to edit before I finish today, and a couple of photo albums to take to the post office. Right, that's all I wanted to say. I'll open the comments up as soon as the upload's done. And yeah, just share and subscribe and like, and just let as many people see this as you can. Thanks, guys.